Hello and welcome to a game of the top rung of the Transcontinental Ladder. This video, or that I will show this game, was voted for by my Patreon supporters. A big thanks to them. And also there is another video that I voted for already the month before and that I didn't record yet. At the moment there are a lot of games that I want to cover. As soon as there's a little bit of a dry phase, I will catch up with also recording the video which was voted for in the month before. Alright, but today we are taking a look at my game of the Transcontinental Ladder. For those of you who don't know anything about this tournament, it is actually the tournament with the longest history, the oldest tournament that is still ongoing. This tournament was already played in 2017, so now almost 9 years ago. And also my two opponents, I noticed, Saru and AaronGreen, are actually both very old veterans in the Transcontinental Ladder because both of them actually played already in 2018 in the Transcontinental Ladder, so have been playing in this tournament for many years. Are players who are playing the game in general for many years, certainly longer than I am. And yeah, the tournament has a very easy structure. It's a tournament limited to 66 players. Those 66 players are divided in 22 groups of 3. In each of those groups, a 3-player game is played. And if you win your 3-player game, you move one rung up. If you finish second, you stay in the current rung. And if you lose, you move one rung down. And if you win in the top rung, then you start collecting titles. AaronGreen has actually the 4th most titles collected with 11. I'm certainly at 9. I was able to catch up a little bit because I actually had a winning streak in the top rung. I managed to win the last 3 games. If I should manage to win this game, then it would be the 4th win in a row. And Saru also has 2 titles won, but I think those are quite a while ago. I think they were before I joined the Transcontinental Ladder, so he has now the chance to maybe collect a title after a very long time again. And now without further ado, I would say let's start with taking a look at this game. And first of all, we will start by taking a look at the leaders and wonders. And as you can see, we have some lab and science energy in H3. We have Bill Gates, Sid Meier and Einstein, but there's no space flight. There is the Manhattan Project, however. We also have Fleming, Chaplin and the Hollywood for some synergy. We have Churchill and the Manhattan Project for the military. Also Gandhi is there, which is important to consider. Red Cross is there as well. Then we have a lot of culture leaders in H2. Shakespeare, Gaudi, Bach, Darwin, maybe going for one of those. Maybe potentially then trying to go for Hollywood could be an idea. We also have the 2 science leaders with Newton and Nobel, and we have James Watt together with the railroad. We also have Harvard and Ocean Liner Service with some strong wonders. There's no Maria, there's also no Suez Canal, no Cook. We have the 2 science wonders in H1 with Universitas and Silk Road, Great Wall but no Amici Castle, Forbidden City but no St. Peter's Basilica. We have 2 military action leaders in H1, none in H2. Genghis Khan can help with the strength. Michelangelo is there. And Leonardo and Gutenberg for some lab and printing press energy, and Eleanor is a nice transitional leader. I'm playing in first position and I decide to go for the library. If I go for the library here, then I think I have a good chance, or it's basically guaranteed almost, that I get a good leader at my next turn, because if both Aristotle and Hammurabi are taken away, then it's very likely that Sun Tzu drops down to 1 civil action to me. I'm playing in first position. There's Jan Žižka, there's Genghis Khan. I would then play against Hammurabi, so I think Sun Tzu would be a very fine leader to get. And if either Aristotle or Hammurabi are not taken, then I will be able to take one of them, which I also would be very fine with. However, if I, for example, would now decide to take Aristotle, it's certainly possible that both library and Rome roads are taken away. The Stonehenge would stay on 2 civil actions, and I think that would just be a lot less smooth of a start, so I think taking the library should be the correct call here. Saru goes for Hammurabi. And AaronGreen goes for the Rome roads, and interestingly Moses, so that's an interesting decision. I mean, Aristotle and Rome roads is maybe not the greatest combination. With the big civil action cost of the wonder, you are maybe not able to take that many technologies, and with the additional yellow token, maybe you can get even more population out with Moses, so maybe that was his reasoning. I think I would still just go for Aristotle. I think especially in third position, you most of the time still find a way to take a bunch of technologies, but an interesting choice by AaronGreen, so let's see how it will work out for him. With that, Sun Tzu will stay on 2 civil actions, but of course Aristotle is now available for me, and with that I also decided to go for him. I take him, elect him, build a mine, increase my population, so nothing special this turn. I draw 2 aggressions, Saru goes for Hammurabi, builds a mine, increases his population. Now he has a decision to make, because he can either just take the engineering genius and would then be guaranteed to take pyramids at the next turn, which I think sounds quite lucrative. But with Hammurabi, the Stonehenge is of course also quite a strong combination, and paired with Hammurabi, maybe even stronger than the pair of pyramids in Hammurabi, at least potentially. But of course, the engineering genius plus the pyramids might allow to finish the pyramids very quickly. Saru, however, goes for the Stonehenge here. Maybe one reason why he's willing to go for the Stonehenge could also be the masonry that is coming down the row, which is a very strong technology to get with the Stonehenge. That means that the engineering genius will fall down to 1 civil action for AaronGreen, which allows him to build a mine, go for Moses, take the engineering genius, increase his population with Moses, and at the next turn, thanks to the engineering genius, he then might be able to just finish the Rome roads. Now it is my turn. For me it was relatively clear that I want to build my second lab here to get my science production going. Of course I could build a step of the library, but I just wanted to get the science production even earlier, especially with the line that I will be going for, because I'm actually grabbing the Code of Laws this turn, and with getting that +1 science already this turn, I then, if I grab another technology with Aristotle at the next turn, will be able to develop the Code of Laws already at the next turn, even without any help from developments. However, it was not a completely clear call if I should go for the Code of Laws here, because there is also this copy of Masonry coming down the row. I think a technology that should not be underestimated, especially if you can get it before finishing your HA Wonder. And I think it's a strong Masonry game. We have Silk Road, we have Forbidden City, we have Great Wall, we have Railroad and Ocean Liner Service. There's the potential to save a lot of civil action and wonders. There's also potentially Michelangelo to pair with, maybe going for a lot of wonders. And if I don't take the Masonry, then Saru gets the Masonry, which I think is quite a strong pair with Stonehenge. But of course, if I take the Masonry, then Saru gets the Code of Laws, which is also quite a strong pair with the Stonehenge. While Masonry is available for civil action cheaper, I can't spend that additional civil action not that nicely. Either I go very early into consumption, or I grab an HA yellow card. And I think with Aristotle, it is just very strong to just get an additional civil action upright, and with that maybe be able to take even more technologies afterwards, and with that I ended up taking the Code of Laws. But I do think just taking the Masonry is also something that should certainly be considered here. There are of course also some military techs, but I think with Aristotle you just want to get some nice stuff going, and I think the Code of Laws at the end I was willing to take here. I draw some cards, I have a cavalry tactic, there is potentially Genghis Khan in the game, also a colonization card, Saru seeds the Hammurabi, and unfortunately for me, the development of religion is revealed. I'm the only player who isn't able to take it at the end. Saru takes the free religion, he of course takes the masonry, interestingly takes the theocracy, increases his population to get early into corruption, and then takes the swordsman. A very interesting turn. Theocracy, I mean, he has Hammurabi, he can maybe do a revolution, has the swordsman without a tactic, but knows that he has a military technology available. And I mean, Saru, I think, goes sometimes for a bit of a military push, and the theocracy and the swordsman could be an indicator that maybe he wants to at least have the potential to set something up like this. And yeah, with taking the free religion, if he wants to take all of those cards, he didn't find a free civil action to build his second lab here, but maybe he could have missed out on a swordsman or something. But yeah, an interesting turn. Let's see where that will lead him. AaronGreen just finishes the Rome roads, which is on one hand strong, on the other hand he misses out on some potentially interesting cards. There's a copy of Knights available for 1 civil action, there's a breakthrough available for 1 civil action, so maybe it could have been an idea to just increase population, build a second lab, and then finish the Rome roads at the next turn. But he also has saves up even an additional food like this, which of course could also cause corruption issues with Moses. So I think maybe those cards could be considered. If he has, of course, an infantry tactic, then the knights are less important to take, and just getting the Rome roads out of the way is certainly also not bad. Now it is my turn. I can't really use my politics phase. I will pick up the knights for one civil action. I have the heavy cavalry tactic. Maybe I will be able to make it work to just build 3 knights at some point. Thanks to taking the knights, I have now enough science to develop the code of laws, getting my 5th civil action going. I have to increase my population to get out of corruption. At the next turn I will then have enough resources to finish the library. And now I have some different options how to spend my last 2 civil actions. I could potentially take the monarchy, but it will take a while until I can go for it. I don't think I can set up a nice revolution, and then taking that for 2 civil actions I think is not the right call, even though maybe it could be nice to upgrade my civil actions even more. There's a copy of Breakthrough, which is a strong card to get for 1 civil action. With Aristotle, of course, I could also just take some technology and get a science, and then there's also the option to spend a civil action on already building a step of the Library of Alexandria to maybe be more civil action efficient. Both warfare and drama are technologies that I think have the potential to be useful, but are also maybe not the highest priority. But there is some synergy for drama in the game. There's Bach, Chaplin, the Hollywood, Antoni Gaudi, so I think it certainly could be an idea to grab the drama here. But I think also for the warfare, there are some arguments. Saru went for this Theocracy Swordsman grab, which could be an indicator that he wants to do something military heavy. Jan Žižka is coming down the row, so being able to get this warfare could also be quite a bit of a help to maybe not be in danger later on. At the end I made a call to take the Breakthrough. It's just still a very efficient card to take for 1 civil action, and I could just build a step of the library, but I ended up making the decision of taking the warfare. As said, there's Žižka coming down the row. AaronGreen will have a lot of additional population with Moses and the yellow token from the Rome road. Saru has Theocracy and additional happy face from the Stonehenge. I think both have some military potential here, and so at the end I went for the warfare, but I do think the drama could also be considered here, and I think I would take the drama over building a step here. It potentially opens up some strong options in H2, but here I just felt a bit safer with having the warfare in hand. I keep the tactic and a colonization card. I draw the Dark Ages and the new deposits. Saru develops the masonry, finishes the Stonehenge, is willing to delay the 2nd lab for now, and he also is willing to delay it in order to grab the Forbidden City, which is an interesting take, because the Forbidden City is, I think, a strong wonder. I mean, I praised it a lot in my Leaders and Wonders overview of my tournament games 2025. But here maybe it's not the ideal situation for it, because he has lone resources and he already has his happy faces covered, so the ignored unhappy workers won't do a lot for quite some time, and it will cost him quite a bit. But then again, he has the masonry, can finish it very efficiently, and if he indeed goes for the Theocracy, being able to upgrade his civil action count could be quite strong. So there are also some strong arguments for it, and now with that he is actually willing to just get that going and maybe finish it then later on, maybe at the end of H1 or something. AaronGreen increases his population, builds a warrior to get out of corruption, which allows him at the end to take Jan Žižka and the irrigation, which seems somewhat costly, but he is again accumulating even more food, which maybe makes him a bit inflexible for the upcoming turns, but maybe with Jan Žižka and his many population, he has the potential to become quite threatening, and with the irrigation maybe wants to get potentially even more population out. Maybe just increasing his population instead of the irrigation could have been an idea, but I guess he saves up 1 more food, and it could be an interesting technology to have for later on. Now it is my turn. I again don't see it. I think at this point I don't necessarily have an interest in pushing the deck forward, as I'm for now not that nicely prepared to increase my military strength. I think this turn it's also good to finish the library, get the additional science production going, and then I have 2 civil actions left. I do think it is tempting to take this copy of Iron here. At the next turn I have enough science to go for it. I can start my resource production. Who knows, maybe there's even a chance that Michelangelo is still available at the next turn, and then I could go for him with some iron production, with a lot of wonders still in the deck. Potentially the Machu Picchu, Universitas, some strong H2 wonders that could be interesting. But again, I was a bit worried, maybe too worried, maybe I should just take that copy of Iron, maybe I am a bit too worried here, but AaronGreen has that Jan Žižka with the many population that he will have. Saru, I mean, didn't draw a lot of cards, might not have a good tactic, but could also go for some pressure. He doesn't have the most population, but at this point I was more worried about AaronGreen. And at the moment, I could get help from the developments, but at the moment I don't have a lot of food. The only tactic that I have to work with is this heavy cavalry tactic. And if I don't make sure to maybe get a little bit of help to get more population out, then I just feared that it will be quite tricky for me to get enough knights going. Maybe I will draw a different tactic, maybe it won't end up being an issue. I have already taken the warfare, maybe I should just be greedy enough to take the iron here. But at the end, I took both the frugality and the patriotism. Frugality allowing me to increase my population 2 times guaranteed at the next turn. The patriotism potentially helping me with building some military units, which I do think makes me quite a bit more safe and could allow me to just get a heavy cavalry tactic going, which I think would be potentially difficult if I don't get this additional food and maybe the patriotism. But with having the warfare already in hand, maybe I could also with potentially being able to get Genghis Khan, maybe I should just take the iron here and have something to upgrade. But depending on how military heavy the game turns out to be, grabbing those 2 yellow cards could also end up being quite important potentially. I keep the new deposits, my tactic and a colonization card. I draw 2 strength events. Saru goes now for the revolution again, or he is willing to delay his lab even further, but has now saved some science with going for the revolution, and at the next turn, with not committing any resources into the lab, can maybe go for 2 iron upgrades and increase his resource production. Now he has really a lot of happy faces already, so the ignored unhappy workers from the Forbidden City probably won't be doing a lot for a while. AaronGreen now has to spend some actions to get out of corruption, increases his population 2 times with Moses, builds a second lab, takes the engineering genius, and doesn't elect Jan Žižka for now. Now it is my turn, and I this turn will get another chance of getting the iron going. There is actually still Michelangelo available, and as you will also see, there is there's actually no Universitas coming down the road. It will happen a bit later, but there's the Universitas in the game, which I think could be a very interesting wonder to take. There's also Machu Picchu coming down the road, but it might be discarded before my next turn, and actually for certain if I take the irrigation, so if it wheels around, then only without the irrigation could still be interesting with Michelangelo, but here I decided to go with iron plus Michelangelo, also partly because I had the new deposits in hand, which I seeded now. Seeding this is maybe a mistake, however, because I maybe should just keep it in hand and seed it a little bit later on, because I have a relatively clean turn here. I can take the iron, thanks to the increased hand limit of the library, develop it, go for an upgrade, get out of corruption, and then take Michelangelo with my last civil action, and then just go for further upgrades later on and get the production going as quickly as possible. Now that I already this turn committed to seeding, however, you can see the development of agriculture is revealed, and now, sadly, going for 1 iron upgrade is just not enough to get me out of corruption. So I thought about, do I now maybe not go for Michelangelo? Do I just develop the iron, go for an upgrade, increase my population, get out of corruption like that, and wait for one of the other leaders? Maybe Genghis Khan could be helpful. Eleanor is a nice leader to get late. Joan of Arc, maybe not great with having missed out on the free temple, but I could get some other leaders. But I don't know when I get those other leaders. I might only get them when the age has already ended, so I don't get a civil action back when replacing Aristotle. Maybe I have even to pay an additional civil action for them, while I now have the chance to get Michelangelo with some very interesting wonders in the mix. And with that being the case, I was still willing to go for that Iron and Michelangelo combination, but I have to miss out on going for an upgrade this turn. It is at least only 1 resource. Of course, 1 resource can snowball into a lot of other things that early in the game, and I think I should have just not pushed here and gone for that 1 upgrade turn, and not with that not being disrupted by some additional resources or food being revealed. But now that I had made this decision, I was at the end still willing to go for that Iron Michelangelo combination. It also has to be said that this combination actually has led me to 2 out of my last 3 Transcontinental Ladder wins. In 2 out of those 3 games I went for Michelangelo, and I was able to win the game, so I just at the moment I'm relatively high on Michelangelo if I get him together with Iron, and so I was willing to take him. It's relatively late in the game. I can maybe take one more technology or something with Aristotle at the next turn, and then switch to Michelangelo and maybe just get the Universitas going with a bit of a discount, maybe in the strong H2 wonder. And if that should happen, I think that already is a very solid wonder to get out of your leader. Really solid value to get out of your leader. I draw some cards, the Crusades and the Cultural Influence. Saru Seeds opens the development of crafts. With that, could finish the Forbidden City this turn, but I think I agree that going for the Iron first should be the better choice. He goes for 2 upgrades, takes a rich land, increases his population, and then ends his turn. AaronGreen seeds and opens the development of planning. The options for that are development of politics, civil life, and science. Civil life potentially maybe being the strongest among those developments. AaronGreen also chooses the development of civil life and saves the science when developing the irrigation. Is willing to build a 4th farm here, so he really wants to have a lot of population. First having Moses, now going for a lot of food production, but the 3rd farm with Jan Žižka has of course quite some synergies. He then increases his population 2 more times with Moses and decides then that this is finally time to elect Jan Žižka, and also takes the Code of Laws to not be stuck on 4 civil action, even though it will actually cost him quite a bit of his science. He isn't revealing a tactic yet, which is interesting. Maybe he just wants to get more draws, maybe wants to draw an event or something, but it could also be an indicator that he actually hasn't drawn any tactic yet, which could end up being potentially unfortunate for him. Now it's my turn. As you can see, I actually seed the Crusades into the deck, which is maybe a little bit questionable. But I will at least this turn make sure to get stronger than Saru. If Saru, however, gets stronger, then there is the chance that I might get hit by the Crusades at AaronGreen's turn. I guess the culture swing is not that important at the beginning, but there's still some culture lost. However, at my next turn, I played this turn so that I can, at the next turn, actually go for a heavy cavalry tactic, and I thought that that could at least be enough to not be the weakest, maybe even the strongest, and I might actually have a shot at winning the Crusades. And at the end, I was actually willing to put that event into the deck. The development of warfare is revealed. Sadly, that was the development that I didn't really like to see, because as said, my plan here was to go for the heavy cavalry tactic, and that is also still the plan. I don't have any other knights tactic, none of my opponents has revealed a knights tactic, and with that I actually decided to just skip the development of warfare, and of course I would have really preferred it to get a different development here. So yeah, that I wasn't happy about that reveal, so I will just skip it, go for 2 iron upgrades. And sadly I won't be able to take another technology with Aristotle because my civil actions are relatively tight. I could go for the Machu Picchu here, it certainly is an idea with Michelangelo. But I just thought Universitas, with me still needing a government form, with me actually developing the knights this turn, the science might just be even more valuable, and I don't have the irrigation for the Machu Picchu, and AaronGreen, if I don't take the Universitas, with the engineering genius and with him being low in science and maybe still needing a lot of science, the Universitas could also be a really strong wonder for him. In the Silk Road, not as much, as he is on low civil actions, so I felt it is also a small denial maybe, and with that I elected Michelangelo this turn. I took the Universitas. Taking it also gives me 1 additional resource, which is now just enough so that I can develop the knights with the breakthrough and build a knight. However, I do think I make a mistake here, or I miss out on something, because I think I should have already revealed the heavy cavalry tactic. I don't think it's a clear mistake, because there's a reason to hold it back, and that reason is Genghis Khan who is coming down the row. Saru hasn't committed on a leader yet, and me revealing the heavy cavalry tactic gives him certainly some very interesting information on whether he should take Genghis Khan or not. But maybe he will take him anyway, as he is the only leader. I mean, he might wait for Eleanor, or Joan of Arc potentially, with the theocracy and the free religion. So there is certainly a reason to not reveal the heavy cavalry tactic, but at the next turn, the age likely ends. And then if I increase my population, I have 3 workers. 2 of them are unhappy, so I can only build 1 knight, and the 3rd population has to basically come from deleting this warrior and building the 3rd knight if I want to get the heavy cavalry tactic online at the next turn. I thought that it is worthwhile doing for me. And The problem is, if I don't reveal the tactic right now, then I don't have enough military actions to do that maneuvering unless I develop the warfare, which maybe is a fine thing to do anyway, but it could also be nice to not be forced to develop the warfare, and also I would get an additional H2 draw instead of an H1 draw. So it's still a somewhat close call, but I think here I should just rather focus on my own benefits, making sure to get more draws and not having to play this warfare in case I want to get my heavy cavalry tactic online at the next turn. So I think I should have just revealed the tactic here, but I decide to keep it in hand. I draw the scientific breakthrough, which could end up being an interesting event when I finish the Universitas. Saru can take the free warrior, develops the swordsman with the development of civil life, is now relatively low in science, not building the second lab, is now maybe somewhat biting him. He goes for Genghis Khan, builds the swordsman, takes 2 cards, and as you can see, he actually has the legion tactic in hand, so at least maybe it did something, not revealing the tactic, as Saru now, it will take a bit longer until he will be able to copy to the better tactic. Now it's AaronGreen's turn. He seeds and opens the strategic territory. Was not willing to bid more than this 1 warrior on the card, and at the end AaronGreen is able to win it. I was happy to see though, however, that he needs to send 2 warriors away. I mean, he has enough population income, so maybe it's fine, but he also costs him some resources, but I guess he gets 1 worker or 1 warrior back for free with the development of warfare. Develops the code of laws, increases his population, upgrades the farm, and then takes the alchemy, which I guess at some point could still be useful. Maybe you could also just take the reserves and say I just wait for H2 solutions to be revealed for fixing my economy further. Now it is my turn. I'm the weakest. I was very happy to see that there was no strength event revealed on AaronGreen's turn. The Crusades could have been revealed when I was the weakest. Luckily for me it wasn't revealed. And this turn I have to get stronger. I play the patriotism, increase my population, build a knight, disband a warrior, build another knight. Now you can see I can't reveal the heavy cavalry tactic unless I develop the warfare. Developing the warfare I guess is fine. Getting the 3rd military action is very helpful in H2. Give the additional strength could also help me fighting for those strength events. But still, just having more options could be quite interesting here. So I think I probably should have just revealed the tactic the turn before. Now I do develop the warfare, I reveal the tactic going up to 11 strength, and then I take the rich land for my last iron upgrade and also a copy of Bread and Circuses, just to have a way to fix my happy faces, in case someone has maybe seeded a rebellion or an immigration. Saru certainly was in a position to potentially push a rebellion into the deck, so I thought maybe just building a Bread and Circuses at the next turn could be fine. It also gives me a bit of culture production with Michelangelo for a very cheap cost. There's sadly no Pierre in the game, but at least Darwin and Antoni Gaudi, so yeah, maybe that is a nice card to have. It was actually quite an interesting decision here if I should take the left and the right copy, or the right copy of that card. And the thing that changes when I would take the right copy is that the Great Wall falls down to 1 civil action in the 1 civil action area for Saru. If I now let it stay on 2 civil actions, I take the option away from him to go for that one. He just doesn't have enough civil actions. He can finish the Forbidden City with 2 actions with the Masonry, and afterwards has 3 actions left, but it's 1 too few to take the Great Wall from the 2 civil action area. He could, however, take it if I would take the right copy of the Bread and Circuses. If he doesn't take it, I thought if it drops down into the 1 civil action area, it could be interesting for him to take, with having Genghis Khan, with having 3 units, with having that Masonry. I do think that could be a very interesting wonder for him to have. If I now let it stay in 2 civil actions, I let the Great Wall be available for AaronGreen, who also has some infantry units, who has the engineering genius, and also for him it could end up being a very interesting wonder, also with the additional happy face. So the question was, which opponent do I want to rather have this wonder? And at the end I thought maybe I would rather want to see it in the hands of AaronGreen, who doesn't have the Masonry, so he can't finish it that civil action efficiently, and he also doesn't have iron production. He has this engineering genius, but I still felt like for Saru that could be even cleaner, maybe getting the Great Wall. For Saru, however, the Kremlin could actually be very interesting here, with having that many excess happy faces and with being on Theocracy, so maybe he wouldn't take the Great Wall anyway. Also with AaronGreen having the Great Wall, if he should go for it, then the player just in front of me has a wonder slot not available, meaning that if there are strong H2 wonders revealed, AaronGreen, at least for a while, wouldn't be in a position to take them away from me with having Michelangelo. So that was actually quite a bit of a decision that might shape the game in different directions. I maybe can influence here whether Saru can have this wonder or not. Of course, I don't know whether Saru would even go for it. Maybe he wants to wait for the Kremlin. But I do think it could be an interesting wonder for him. And at the end, I thought maybe I rather want to have it available for AaronGreen, which of course could mean that Saru instead gets just a stronger wonder. Maybe the Kremlin, maybe Ocean Liner Service, Railroad, Harvard College. So maybe it could actually be beneficial for me if he commits to the Great Wall. So I wasn't really certain about that, so it was quite an interesting call at the end. I thought maybe I will let this wonder rather be available for AaronGreen. Now it's Saru's turn. There are 2 early copies of Coal revealed. Saru Seeds, the Good Harvest is revealed. AaronGreen has now tons of food to work with. Saru finishes the Forbidden City, increases his population 2 times with the Frugality, and takes a copy of Urban Growth to maybe at some point finally build some science buildings. He lets the selective breeding, I guess the selective breeding doesn't matter for AaronGreen, but he has the irrigation already. AaronGreen increases his population, and he indeed goes for the Great Wall, has good chances to just get a copy of Coal at the next turn, builds a warrior, and builds a step of the Great Wall. He isn't too much concerned about his happy faces yet, so he very, very likely didn't see the rebellion and maybe has even knowledge about it. And with at least one of my opponent also being in a position to get hit very much by a potential rebellion, I was here willing to cede because I am the strongest. I could win some strength events, I could win the Crusades, and if the new deposit should be revealed, then I could even finish the Universitas already this turn and go for an iron upgrade, which I think makes my turn quite a bit smoother. I do see the scientific breakthrough with the Universitas. That should be a fine event for me. And no new deposits, but the Crusades are revealed, so seeding that event did actually work out for me at the end, and I steal some culture from Saru. This turn I take the selective breeding. I mean, I could wait for the second copy. AaronGreen has the irrigation going, but just being in a position to just go for that as soon as I think it's valuable for me can be fine. I get it for 1 civil action, so I wanted to have that available. There's also a copy of Conmon coming down the row. AaronGreen maybe could take it away, but Saru has already an H1 government form, and I don't have enough science to go for a government form very soon anyway, so I don't think there's a reason for me to take it for 3 civil actions here. So instead I take the selective breeding. I build a Breton Circus because I was a bit afraid that maybe Saru could have seeded a rebellion, so I felt like maybe just better be safe, get a bit of additional strength, and also 2 additional culture production going. And then I go for an iron upgrade. I could have played the turn a bit differently, either not going for the iron upgrade or not building the Breton Circuses and instead building a step of the Universitas, which would have the advantage that at the next turn the new deposits are coming, but of course if I build a step instead of building one of those things, I'm actually guaranteed to finish the Universitas. Now I can finish the Universitas only when the new deposits are revealed. But if I build a step, I could finish the Universitas and take a strong wonder, even if it isn't a 3 civil action area. So if there's an ocean liner, maybe a railroad, I could just take it with Michelangelo, which could potentially be quite strong. But I just, at the end, decided that both fixing my happy faces and getting that iron upgrade going first, especially with the new deposits coming, is more important to me than being prepared for that one eventuality, which could turn out to be very important, being prepared to take such a wonder, but yeah, as I said, I at the end rather wanted to get those other things going. Sadly, I now miss 1 resource to build a step of the Universitas, which I very much would have liked to do, because otherwise I don't really have anything nice to do. I have Warfare already, can't take any of those. I could take Shakespeare, but he doesn't really do a lot for me. Theology I don't need, so at the end I actually just float the last civil action here. I draw some cards, economic progress, a very early international trade agreement which I was happy to see, and a wealthy territory. Saru accedes, the new deposits are revealed, so both I and Saru gain 6 additional resources. Thanks to the additional resources, Saru can actually go for the Kremlin here, and thanks to the masonry, finish it immediately, go up to 6 civil actions, and then use the urban growth to finally build a second lab. I think a very, very clean turn, and I do think the Kremlin is actually extremely strong for him here. The Kremlin, maybe a wonder that is rather a bit lower on my list from the H2 wonders. But if the situation is right for it, and I do think that's almost a perfect situation with being stuck on a low civil action H1 government, having more than enough excess happy faces, also with the Forbidden City, and having the masonry, and just having a lot of resource lying around, I do think the Kremlin is extremely strong here, boosting the culture production and also some very useful economical bonuses. So the Kremlin, yeah, in this situation, probably S tier, I would say. So Saru makes the right call going for that. There could have been maybe some alternatives. Maybe he could have grabbed Harvard College with his low science income, but I think he makes certainly the right call here to go for the Kremlin. And this turn he adapts the heavy cavalry tactic to get a bit stronger than AaronGreen and also get the additional culture production from Genghis Khan. So he's actually producing quite a bit of culture with now also having the Kremlin. AaronGreen takes the coal, however he is missing 1 science to go for it already this turn. So instead he, after taking it, finishes the Great Wall, builds the warrior to get out of corruption and to get some additional strength, and with the last civil action takes the opera, which is probably a pick that will prepare him for some leaders later on, with Bach, Gaudi being the game, Chaplin, Fleming maybe just wants to make sure to have one of those copies in hand, to make sure that he has for certain some leaders to work with. Still not increasing his population could leave him with a bit of civil action depth at some point. So yeah, that's interesting. Also, he doesn't take the Conmon, but he can't get coal and Conmon and finish the wonder, so he has to miss out on one of those things. And with him also not having the most science, I think missing out on Conmon here is a fine choice, even though of course that leaves that card available for 1 civil action for me. AaronGreen is also the strongest now. I don't push here. I offer the international trade agreement. With having still Michelangelo, I decided that I want to have some additional resources. And I decided to offer it to AaronGreen, which, I mean, he has more than enough food to work with, but he also will get soon deep into his yellow banks, so that's the food that he gets in addition might still be useful, but of course could also potentially cause some corruption issues, but there's also a red cross in the game. So yeah, I just felt like the food isn't that useful for him, but you'd still kind of have to accept this pact, because if you reject it, I can just offer it to Saru, maybe he can accept it and then cancel it, but I just felt he would still accept it, and so I wanted to offer to the opponent who maybe gets less out of the pact. And I offered to AaronGreen, but as you can see, actually rejects it, which is an interesting call. I can of course see that the 1 resource production is a lot more valuable for me than the food is for AaronGreen. But we will also see at the next turn that I will just offer it to Saru, and then we have this turn for, until the end of H3. So just because of that possibility, I think you can't reject this pact. If you want to really not give your opponent the thing, you kind of have to accept it and then cancel to make sure that it isn't just offered to one of his opponent. Maybe AaronGreen was hoping that with him already having rejected it, Saru might also reject it, and then I just don't get a pact at all, but I don't think that's would be a risk worth taking. So AaronGreen interestingly rejects the pact, but as a little spoiler, I will just offer it to Saru at the next turn, and we will have the pact for a very long time. So I do think you kind of have to accept this pact, and also in some sort of metagaming sense, it also makes sense to accept pacts to be not known as a pact rejector, because if I'm playing again against AaronGreen, of course I will always evaluate things on just the situation in game, but I mean, I know now that he maybe is a bit more likely to potentially reject a pact than other players, and that I think is another reason why you should, when in doubt, just accept a pact. But of course I can also see that the resource is just a lot more valuable for me here than the food is for AaronGreen, and it will cost me an additional politics action, and there's now the danger. I was now a bit worried maybe Saru could just reject the pact and I don't get anything, but I thought it's still just too good for Saru to accept it and get some benefits over AaronGreen. This turn I finished the universitas, get some science production going, especially because there's a chance that the scientific breakthrough is revealed before my next turn. And with having Michelangelo, of course, it could be very interesting to take the Harvard College here, but there are two problems with it. First of all, if I take it, I have corruption issues. I can solve those with building another unit, which also would actually make me the strongest again. But then I'm also missing resources to finish the Harvard College already at the next turn. And then there's a danger that I might miss out on two wonders that I probably would prefer over the Harvard College here, the ocean liner service and the railroad. And also it would mean missing out on the conman that I have a chance to take for one civil action now. If the scientific breakthrough is revealed before my next turn, then I can go for that already at the next turn. Maybe I will get another government form, but that republic might be taken away by AaronGreen, and then the other could maybe be late. And so I thought here it's maybe not the right call to go for the Harvard College, even though I felt like it could be a strong option for Saru, who still really needs a fix for his science production. So instead of taking the Harvard College, I take the Constitutional Monarchy, and I actually just built a second bread and circuses here. I could have taken Urban Growth here. Or maybe some other card, but mostly the Urban Growth. But I felt like at some point I will need this arena. If I build it now, I get a bit of culture production. I have the civil action already out of the way, and I don't have a clear use. I mean, I could take the Urban Growth and then build the arena with it. But at the end, with maybe not being able to go for the conman at the next turn, I just thought building this and at least getting a reward in more culture production with Michelangelo right now is maybe the more efficient play. I keep some events and a pact. I draw another colonization card, a war and the annex. Saru seeds and opens the wealthy territory, which AaronGreen is able to win. And he wins it for just a warrior, which I think is a good deal for him, especially with his food production. I actually think it's a very good deal for him. It's extremely strong in the situation. Jumpstarts his coal production. He wasn't able to go for an upgrade at the next turn without this colony. Now he is, so I do think this colony actually helps him quite a lot. Saru takes the revolutionary idea, the cannons, the urban growth, and the selective breeding. While the Harvard College would be strong, it would mean missing out on the selective breeding, and he can't easily take the ocean liners, he would miss out on the cannons, he can take the revolutionary idea, and maybe he can just hope to get scientific methods, and there's actually some synergy for it with Newton, also in H3 with Bill Gates, Meyer, Einstein, so I do think it's the right call from him here to not take the Harvard College. He then upgrades a warrior, builds a swordsman to make sure to not be the weakest, and also again get the culture from Genghis Khan. AaronGreen is the weakest, doesn't seed, increases his population 2 times, rebuilds a warrior to get stronger again, actually builds another warrior, is now at 16 strength, and he interestingly takes the Harvard College here, which is understandable because he also still needs some science production, but probably wants to go for some coal upgrades first. It also costs him the ability to go for coal upgrades already this turn. But maybe I guess the railroad would also be a strong wonder for him, but the Harvard College maybe one of the best wonders that he can get together with the railroad. I'm still not sure, maybe he could have, instead of grabbing that, developed a coal and taken the Republic, because one thing that also happens here is that he skips the next 2 H2 government forms, meaning there's now only 1 copy of Republic left. Maybe there could even be an idea of doing Revolution into Republic at the next turn after going for a coal upgrade. But the Harvard College might still turn out to be very useful. The Rome roads will at some point switch to culture production. AaronGreen might then be very low on science, and having the ability to get additional science without needing to spend science could end up extremely valuable for him. Now it is my turn. As I already spoiled, I will again try offering the pact, and Saru is willing to accept it, so we have that pact ongoing now. And what I do here was not my first instinct for the turn. My first instinct was, okay, I don't have enough science to develop the conmon. There's also no new wonder that I can take. Let's just go for the selective breeding, go for 2 upgrades and grab the cannons, get my food production going. Do think it is maybe good to not delay it too much further. And I would be able to get the cannons. But thinking more about it, I came to a different solution, and I, instead of going for 2 food upgrades, will actually go for 1 upgrade to scientific method and take the cannons. First of all, there's of course the scientific breakthrough coming, so I might get, while at a first look, I might get 4 food out of the 2 upgrades to selective breeding and only 2 science. With that upgrade, I might actually get 4 science out of it if the scientific breakthrough is revealed before my next turn. If the scientific breakthrough is revealed before my next turn, then I have 17 science, which is actually just enough to go for the common and the selective breeding, which is also quite nice. With not committing to the selective breeding, I make it that the ocean liner service remains a very interesting option for me to take with Michelangelo after I have committed to 2 food upgrades. The ocean liner service could end up being a bit of overkill, even though with the Red Cross it might still end up being a very strong wonder. But going for that line has also some hate drafting reasons involved, because as you can see, there's Newton coming down the row. I didn't really find a good way to implement him into my turn. I wasn't willing to miss out on the cannons here. But if I go for the selective breeding and cannons line, then Newton and the scientific method would be available for Saru, and I do think that just could give him an extremely big boost. He has the masonry, he has this urban growth, he could easily go for 2 upgrades, go for Newton out of the sudden beat, 8 science production, have Newton combined with the theocracy, while now he has to wait for those other solutions which will be available for him eventually, but I think them being available now, or maybe in 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 turns, I guess 3 is a bit too late, but maybe 2 turns, I think makes an extremely big difference, and also him being able to get Newton online immediately could make a very big difference. And with that, I just felt I can't leave him this copy of Scientific Method, and I felt it still offers some nice benefits to myself. And with that, I at the end was willing to go for that. I also considered skipping the cannons and taking that away, but then I felt I'd rather just go for it and take the cannons. I don't take any of those leaders yet, so I have to see which leader I will end up be able to go for. Maybe I could get Newton, but I thought it's likely that he will either be taken away or discarded before my next turn. Saru offers the scientific cooperation to AaronGreen. Again, he rejects this pact. Scientific cooperation is of course a bit more tricky. Saru doesn't have a lot of science income, but he can go maybe for Nobel, has a revolutionary idea in hand, can grab the breakthrough, has the selective breeding in hand, the cannons, maybe some technologies that he wants to go for soon, while AaronGreen at some point will go for the Harvard College, but might want to go for coal first, still needs a government form, which is one big technology, which is not ideal for the scientific breakthrough. So I can see that he is maybe skeptical here, but with the Harvard College, maybe he could be brave enough and try getting some value out of this pact, but it certainly could backfire here, so here I think it's more understandable to reject it. Even though here's of course also the danger that Saru might potentially offer it to me, which always has to be weighed in. Saru will go for Nobel now that he can't go for Newton and methods. Maybe he would have gone for Nobel anyway, because after losing Genghis Khan, he is actually dropping quite a bit in strength, can maybe copy to the Legion tactic if he wants, takes the breakthrough, takes the Conmon interestingly, so maybe he doesn't want to stay on theocracy forever. 6 civil actions is fine. Justice system is gone, however, so maybe it could be interesting. Maybe it could also be fine to just take the reserves and wait for an H3 government form though, so I'm not totally certain about this Conmon grab, but it can certainly also end up just being quite strong for him, having more civil actions to work with. Newton, as you can see, will sadly be discarded before my turn. AaronGreen seeds, the scientific breakthrough is revealed, which I was very happy on how it turned out. This was also another reason why I really wanted to make sure that Saru doesn't get access to those scientific methods, because then he might have a chance of getting into those before the scientific breakthrough is revealed, which I think would have just given him an insanely big boost. Now I gain the most science out of that event. AaronGreen will start going for a coal upgrade. Takes the Rifleman, which is an important technology for him with the Great Wall. He missed out on the cannons, doesn't know whether he get Cavalryman, so I guess it is maybe a safety measure that he has to take, especially with not knowing whether he has a chance to get strategy. But it comes at a cost, and that cost is to miss out on the Republic, which maybe is fine, because maybe it's a bit dangerous to invest into it. However, not having any government form to work with, of course, is also somewhat dangerous, so probably a tough call. But I can see that maybe it's just too dangerous not getting the rifleman here. He also then takes the reserves, potentially allowing him to finish the Harvard College already at the next turn if he would like to. Now it is my turn. I am not the weakest, and I thought, let's just push, and I push the inhabited territory into the deck. Maybe a little bit questionable, but both of my opponents have now a lot of food production going. I thought maybe the benefit of this territory could potentially be bigger for myself. It will take a little while until it is revealed anyway, and I have so much science that I thought I could maybe, without too much problem, invest into the navigation and potentially start seeding even further colonies. While I was not too confident about being the strongest without having an H2 tactic, and the economic progress with AaronGreen having coal could potentially also backfire, so I didn't want to commit to that event, and at the end committed to the inhabited territory. The border conflict is revealed, which gives AaronGreen 3 additional resources. Saru will have to destroy something. This turn, as you can see, I make a decision on which leader I want to go for. And yeah, Darwin I think is fine. If I don't take any leader, then there's only Bach left. AaronGreen also still needs to wait for a leader, so he might compete for Bach, especially with the opera in hand, so I think I kinda should go for a leader now. I think it's a choice between Darwin and James Watt here. James Watt I could use to get a discount immediately this turn on the selective breeding, get those farm upgrades going cheaper, just get a solid amount of value out of him very quickly, and then there's always the potential that I might get an H3 oil with him and maybe boost my economy just very heavily. But the problem is, I want to get that selective breeding going now. I don't want to wait with that even further. And with going for James Watt, I have to elect my leader this turn, which means I can't keep Michelangelo, and Michelangelo gives me still some nice options here. First of all, he produces me 4 culture, which is not nothing, and he gives me the option to potentially take a strong wonder, either the railroad or the ocean liner service for cheap price still at the next turn, and I thought it might still end up being a potentially strong choice for me having that option. So I took Darwin here so that I can keep Michelangelo for another turn, and Darwin will give me a bit of culture production, save me some civil actions. I have a good amount of science production, so I hopefully will be able to invest into some technologies and maybe make use out of his civil action discount. I then developed a constitutional monarchy, I developed a selective breeding, I go for 2 upgrades immediately. There's the idea of maybe going for an upgrade less in case I still get the ocean liner service, but there's the Red Cross in the game, and in case I get the ocean liner service, thanks to the 1 resource that I get from Michelangelo, I could actually just take and finish it, even with going for the 2nd upgrade. So I just wanted to get as much food production going as possible, especially because there's also not the greatest way how I could use the civil action if I don't upgrade it, because now I will end up taking urban growth, which I can use to maybe upgrade a 2nd lab. And if I now would have an excess civil action, I just can't really do anything with it. So I think just going for 2 upgrades should be the correct choice here. I draw some cards, 3 aggressions, maybe not really the thing that I need. I was also a bit worried about not having access to an H2 tactic yet, and I mean I have the cannons, but I don't know whether I will get the rifleman. Saru seeds, opens the immigration, that of course I was happy to see. I get an additional population, building those Breton circuses has paid off for me in that sense. Saru goes for the common already this turn, has grabbed it at the last turn, now at least makes use out of it very quickly. Takes the organized religion, builds 1 to get more happy faces. I mean, he had the Forbidden City, but soon he will need a happy faces, and then he can maybe just spend his civil actions on that already this turn. He copies back to the Legion tactic this turn. With taking the common at the last turn, of course, he knew that soon he might get a boost in his military actions, and waited with copying the tactic so that he doesn't miss out on any draws. This is the weakest, though, even longer now. Now it's AaronGreen's turn. He sees the Ravages of Time are revealed, which I was actually fairly happy to see. Especially AaronGreen losing the yellow token and the blue token is quite annoying for him. Also missing out on the science production 1 turn earlier I think hurts him. I don't think the 2 culture make up for this at that point with his lower science income. I will lose the library, which I think is not too bad with me having solid science production anyway. Saru will lose the Stonehenge, maybe he has seeded that, maybe with that was also willing to fix his happy faces already this turn. But now with having the organized religion and the Forbidden City, I guess it's just for quite some time a culture increase for him. So I guess for him it's good, for AaronGreen rather bad. AaronGreen upgrades one coal mine, increases his population, upgrades another coal mine, plays the reserves for resources, and takes the frugality. At the next turn, maybe finally he will be able to finish the Harvard College. However, he also still needs to take an H2 leader, so might be a bit in civil action depth here. Also loses Sunyan Shishka. But I mean, he has a lot of culture production now that the Rome Road switched already a bit earlier than usually. We will get even more with the Harvard College, potentially even more with Bach. So if he gets away with that, maybe under the protection of the Great Wall, then yeah, his position certainly shouldn't be underestimated. Now it is my turn. As you can see, I see the Crime Wave into the deck, which might hit me. Maybe I should just not push it all. I could consider the Raiders, but the Raiders are revealed immediately and then I get hit by it very likely, while I thought that my plan is to go for the railroad here, and that with that I thought maybe I have a chance to at least be the strongest with some time, after some time, and maybe the crime wave, if it is revealed later on, could be beneficial. If not, it's not the worst scenario. I could see the economic progress, but AaronGreen has those coal mines. Maybe I should just go for it, but it could be revealed too early, and I rather wanted to keep it in hand. There's an interesting event revealed, and that is the autonomous territory, and I think here, I'm not sure if I was willing to go all in. I think maybe I kept one defense card in hand for safety reasons, but maybe I was actually willing to go all in, because I have some interesting way to rebuild my strength, and that actually boosts my economy quite nicely here, I think. I am able to win the autonomous territory for a big price. I have to send my whole army away, but maybe I have one last H2 draw, and I won't rebuild a lot of units, only one, so if I get the right tactic, maybe I can use this nicely for transitioning if I get a bit lucky. But what this allows me is to take additional resources from the autonomous territory, and what that again allows me is to take the railroad here with Michelangelo. I could also go for the ocean liner, but I have some decent food income. And here I thought, especially with the strength, I kind of need the strength to be safe again. I think the railroad is just stronger. I can take the railroad with the Michelangelo discount, scoring a resource. Afterwards I can switch to Darwin, taking the architecture with the Darwin discount. I think this move just felt very rewarding. I can develop the architecture, finish the railroad, upgrade the lab. This lab upgrade I really wanted to get in. I can then get out of corruption by building one knight at least, to get a bit stronger, maybe to at least have a chance to potentially win that inhabited territory too that I've seeded earlier on. It gets me out of corruption, and I have still a civil action left to take the rifleman. I really wanted to get the lab upgrade going. Of course, generally it's nice to get more science going, but here I think that allows me to hit a very important threshold, and that threshold is 9 science. I have now the railroad, which was possible thanks to Michelangelo, and with 9 science I have just enough science to get into an early oil if one should be available on the road the next turn, and it could just give me a very big boost. I have this economic progress still in hand, so I even have the ability to get an additional production in case I get the oil, so that was of very big importance. And if I would not have enough science after my turn when I go for the architecture, I would have otherwise just skipped the architecture, but with that being possible and with actually saving some resource immediately on upgrading that lab, I thought the architecture is very nice to get here. Saves me some resources. The civil actions that I invested into it are already paid back with finishing that wonder, and then maybe I can go for the red cross a bit more easily, just save more resources when I go for urban buildings. I'm the weakest now, so I could get hit by strength events, which is a bit bad. But soon I can either rebuild those 2 knights to get now significantly stronger again, now that I have the additional strength of the railroad. Or maybe, as said, I could get lucky. I have all of the techs that I need to go for any H2 tactics, so if I maybe get my last H2 draw now a good tactic, I might also have hopefully a good way to get some strength. I do draw some cards, and I do draw a tactic, the fortifications, which is certainly an interesting option to have here. H3 starts, Saru seeds, the international agreement is revealed, which gives maybe AaronGreen potentially some additional actions, which are potentially quite useful for him, so let's see if he will take those. Saru goes for the scientific method. The second copy was quite a bit later, as you can see, so denying the first one and using it for myself I think was potentially quite important at the end. Saru gets it going nonetheless, is now also at 8 science production, or even more. I have only 7 I think, or even only 6. No, I have 8 as well. I lost the library, but I went for the second upgrade. He goes for some yellow cards then and increases his population. Also builds a swordsman, or upgrades a warrior to swordsman I think to get a bit stronger. AaronGreen, as you can see, is using the international agreement to take 2 cards. He doesn't have hand space for more, so that's a bit annoying for him, but every additional action that he can get at this point I think is very valuable for him. He has a lot of unhappy workers, so if he doesn't have knowledge about civil unrest or immigration, it would be very risky for him to cede anyway, and with that I think it's a good choice by him to accept that international agreement. He can now develop the strategy with the breakthrough, goes for Bach, elects Bach, and upgrades a lab to opera, which gets him out of corruption and out of an uprising issue, and increases his culture production up to 10. He again delays the Harvard College, has now only 1 lab left, so he is in a somewhat fragile and dangerous position, which with his economy hasn't invested into any military tech yet, but for now he is the strongest and soon can get at least a Harvard College and with that get a reasonable amount of science production back. We are now at the beginning of age 3, so that's a good time to maybe take a look at the overview. And I think it's an interesting position here. Every player has some stuff going. I think I have now the strongest economy. Combined with Saru, I have the most actions available, but I have more resources. Food production wise, while I have maybe, we have similar food income, or Saru has +1 thanks to the pack, but he has already some free population, so he has, I think, an advantage population wise. Science production wise, we are relatively equal, but I have the additional production, and as you can see on the row, there is actually a copy of oil coming down the row, which I was extremely happy to see, and I thought that, of course, boosts my economy even more and gives me a tons of resource production, and with that I thought my position here has quite some potential actually. Saru has more culture than I have, so has a bit of a culture lead, and has just a very solid economy. Lots of actions, every production is fixed, has some population to work with. If he has a good tactic, can maybe go for a bit of military pressure, so I think he has just an extremely solid position. AaronGreen has a bit more of an imbalanced position. It's very low in science, but has strong resource production, will at least be able to fix the science soon, and has the potential to just build up a lot of culture production with Bach. There's Gandhi in the game to potentially hide behind, so there's certainly the chance that maybe he can just run away with the culture production here. So I do think every player has still some chances, but overall I thought my position with now getting this early oil, which I, as said, I was extremely happy to see, I thought my position might potentially be quite strong here. At my turn, I do decide to push the economic progress. Now that I know that I will get the oil, I thought I want to see that card revealed as quickly as possible. And I could get hit by strength events. Luckily it's no strength event, instead a national pride, which gives Saru even more culture. And then of course I have to go for that oil, it's just way too strong. I go for the right copy, it doesn't make a big difference. I just thought maybe there's a very small chance that this copy could even be discarded before my next turn, and then I have 1 more card that's actually usable for me to take. So I took the right copy. I will go for 1 upgrade. After that I have some different options on what I could do. I could just increase my population 2 times, potentially build an additional knight, but building an additional knight with having the fortifications tactic drawn is maybe not ideal. And so instead I accepted corruption for this turn. No, I don't accept. I am able to get out of corruption with increasing my population 2 times, but I don't even need to build a knight, so I don't commit to another knight, but I do get out of corruption, and with the last 2 civil actions I ended up taking a patriotism and a tanks, because one way to convert my big economy into hopefully a win could of course be with the military. If I draw maybe the right tactic, and with taking the tanks I'm now prepared for all the H3 tactics. I take the tanks over the cavalryman, because with the oil income and the economic progress coming, I think I have more than enough resources to make the tank work. Maybe it could still get a bit tight science-wise, so that could be an argument towards the cavalryman, but at the end I still rather went with the tanks to to give me some options, and then the patriotism, the additional military action, the resources could potentially end up being useful for me. I was also eyeing that Manhattan project that was coming down the road. Actually, that was the more important reason, to take the right copy of oil to make it less likely that the Manhattan project will be discarded before my next turn. I thought it's unlikely, but even if I take this oil, but it's possible, so I wanted to have this as an option, because if I draw maybe a war immediately, or generally it could just be extremely strong for me to invest into that Manhattan project, get some strength without needing any units, and then maybe I get a tactic or just use the fortifications and get a war and get a lot of strength going. So I was eyeing that, and because of that I was taking the right copy of oil. So that's my turn. I draw no war yet, but 2 aggressions, and I do draw the shock troops tactic. Having riflemen and tanks and a knight already, that's certainly a better alternative than the fortifications, potentially. So that could maybe allow me to go for some war-heavy stuff, especially if I should indeed get the Manhattan project. Saru cedes the inhabited territory is revealed after having invested a lot into the autonomous territory. I can't really compete for that, and sadly Saru is able to win it relatively cheaply here. He takes the civil service, the cavalryman, takes Einstein, so replaces Nobel very early, activates the Nobel prizes very early, but with Einstein can maybe get a lot of science production going, plays the wave of nationalism, builds a cannon, builds the 3rd lab, with that goes up to 11 science production, uses the last resource also from the wave with building a swordsman, and is now at 13 strength. Now it's AaronGreen's turn. He seeds. The crime wave is now the last event that's not revealed. Sadly, instead the Cold War, which maybe would have been nice to see after I finished the Manhattan project, but of course I was now the weakest for quite a while, so that was just the expected outcome. Maybe at least I have a chance to dodge the crime wave when I now go for the Manhattan project. But of course the additional science I think is extremely valuable for AaronGreen, and of course also for Saru, who has Einstein, who wants to get the Nobel prizes going, so certainly a strong event for both of my opponents here. AaronGreen finally finishes the Harvard College. It is late, but I do think it is also helpful for him, so and I think that additional science could end up being extremely important for him. He takes the rockets, I think a very important technology for him to have, for some tactics, and gets out of corruption by increasing his population. Now it is my turn. I decided to skip the politics phase because I will actually get stronger either way, because this turn was, I think, a very important one and maybe shapes a little bit the direction which I will take in this game. Because there's this Manhattan project, there's also a copy of Air Force, which, thanks to Darwin, I can take for 1 civil action. So I have all the technologies that I need for the shock troops and the Air Forces, and I can build the Manhattan project. So that gives me some very big military options, but the thing is, as you can see, there are only 36 cards left, which is of course still quite a bunch, but especially with playing in first position, the game might end very quickly. It's always a bit awkward because you can't that nicely plan around on how many turns are actually left. And I don't have a war in hand yet, so I felt like going for the Manhattan project is maybe just strong generally. I score 8 culture, I put a bit of pressure on my opponents, maybe I should just do it. And if I draw a war, I have this big potential. One issue if I go for a war and maybe want to go for some really big military is that I'm somewhat low in population after having sent a whole army away for the autonomous territory. For example, if I at the moment increase my population, I have enough population to build 1 army. But afterwards, if I at some point want to go for a second one, it gets already tight. Maybe 1 army plus air forces plus the Manhattan project is already enough to cause some issues for my opponents. So yeah, maybe I should just go for the Manhattan project play here. But I thought I'm also in a position, I'm a bit behind in culture, but I have the strong economy, I will get a lot of draws. And with that I thought I am maybe in a position to not necessarily rely on going for military play. And I also saw Gandhi coming down the row. I have of course 6 military action in the patriotism, but if I indeed go for riflemen, tanks and air forces, maybe not enough science to go for military theory, it could still get a bit awkward warring against AaronGreen. I do think Gandhi was also a significant factor, and of course me not having a war. If there either would be no Gandhi in the game, or I would have a war in hand. If only one of those things would be fulfilled, I think I would have just gone for the Manhattan Project play. Maybe I still should just do it, because it's still a very useful thing to invest my rocks into that doesn't require any population. But I also have just enough science to get into computers, and there's a Sid Meier available. And at least not investing into the Manhattan Project maybe makes it more easily possible for me to invest into something like fast food chains or Empire State Building, which both could, especially the Empire State Building, has actually some potential. If I now go for some big science production with Sid Meier and have the oil upgrades. So at the end, I went for the more peaceful line and economy heavy line, which I do think is fair. But I also don't have any impacts yet, so while I don't have any wars yet for the other players, I also don't have any impacts yet. I don't know how much I will be able to score from impacts. I think with my strong production, I hopefully should find some impacts to score some points on at the end, but I also don't know it yet, so it was a tough call here. At the end, I went with playing in first position, where it's a bit awkward on when does the age exactly end, and with not having a war in hand, I decided to go for the peaceful option, which I think is a legit choice here. I build a third lab, I upgrade one lab, I take the Air Force with the Darwin discount, I go for Sid Meier, I elect him already, I have still 12 science production left, so I was thinking it's good to already switch towards the culture income, and then I increase my population and I have just enough resource left to build 2 knights, which makes me the strongest, which means that if Saru seeds now, the crime wave is revealed, and if he doesn't get stronger, then maybe it's revealed on AaronGreen's turn. Sadly, I don't take any of those yellow cards, which I guess with my big production I don't need, but it means that Saru has now 5 yellow cards available for 1 civil action, which I was a bit unhappy to see. I keep the tactics, some aggressions, and the historic territory. I do now draw a hybrid war, which is maybe not ideal, because at the moment I need all of my happy faces. Also draw an impact of culture, which with Sid Meier maybe I can potentially make work, but it's at this point not certain. AaronGreen might go for a lot of culture reduction with Bach and some operas. Saru develops 2 technologies, scores a Nobel Prize, has now lots of actions with the civil service, takes the military theory for 3, and then he will indeed end up taking all of those 5 yellow cards, so that is quite some value, and while he doesn't have any oil production, that maybe just makes up for it, to be honest, especially with the 10 civil action that he's having now. Also, he makes it that the age might end very quickly, and of course with my big production, every additional turn could just be extremely valuable, so him having that many civil actions and being able to take that many cards, I was not too happy to see here. Especially with Einstein and the Nobel Prizes, he's also starting to run away a bit with the culture. AaronGreen also still has that culture lead, so I was a bit worried here. But I also thought my position still has a lot of potential. Sadly, both Saru and AaronGreen didn't see it, meaning now with the military alliance, AaronGreen will get stronger, and I am now again potentially get hit by the crime wave if I see it at my turn. AaronGreen builds an additional theater, takes the revolutionary idea. He at some point probably still wants to get into a government form, especially because he also needs a bigger album building limit at some point. And then he just wants to be safe here and goes for Gandhi, which I guess is a good decision. Now he doesn't get hit by anything surprising here. Maybe he could have played it greedily and kept Bach for 1 more turn, but I guess he probably did some calculations. Here again I have to make a decision, which I was not happy to make, because there are now already only 21 cards left, as you can see. So if I would have planned around a war, I might have only had now 1 more turn left to declare the war, which might not even be enough time to set everything up. And also I might have only 6 draws to draw. Well, I did not draw that hybrid war, but of course didn't know that. At the moment, I of course thought about setting a hybrid war up for the next turn, and I will at least play my turn so that potentially it could remain an option. But likely I won't be able to go for this hybrid war, so I will go for some peaceful plays, and if I go for peaceful plays, I just need impacts in there that will score me some points. And with that, I was willing to seed the impact of culture into the deck. Even though I was not certain if I will have more culture reduction than AaronGreen, especially because he might still get a democracy going. He has enough science to go for that at the next turn. And then he has just a lot of culture reduction. But I have that big economy. There are movies coming down the road. at the end of my turn, we will actually see that it was a bit of an interesting choice on how much I can plan around those movies. But I might get some culture-producing urban buildings going, maybe even a copy of Democracy myself. I have lots of resources, economic progress is coming, and I thought I have a chance here to overtake AaronGreen in the culture rating. And even if I don't, AaronGreen is at least in a position where he could get punished by some impacts. Impact of technology is very bad. Progress, maybe he is somewhat fine until he gets a government form, but not that great. I mean, it's not that bad, but I generally I thought the impacts probably favor me over him, and with that I was more confident that I will be able to catch up to AaronGreen than to Saru. Even especially one big issue about Saru is that this red cross is coming down the row. He has the masonry and 10 actions, 16 food, he can just take and finish it. I thought about denying it, but I need population to invest my resources, and I also would only get 3 steps. Miss out on another wonder, I will take the Empire State Building this turn. So that's just not an option, but with Saru getting the red cross, I was really concerned about my abilities to overtake him. And so I guess that on one hand means that maybe I shouldn't see an impact in there which potentially benefits AaronGreen, but I was somewhat confident that I might end up being able to finish before him. But of course that might also depend on my impacts draws, and I don't have any more impacts. And I will get stronger this turn, so maybe I just shouldn't have seeded, but I might not have that many politics phases left. I just really hope that I draw more good impacts, and I just might need some impacts in there, and at least the impact of culture will almost for certain give me 7, potentially 14 points against Saru. So if I want to keep my hopes alive to finish before Saru, I might need that impact in there, plus some other good ones. So I decided to push, but it was again not an easy decision, and maybe with the crime wave being on top and with me actually getting stronger this turn anyway, maybe I should have just waited with seeding. As you can see, I go for the Empire State Building here. I do think I at least should be able to win 3 categories with the potential for more. I think every category has the potential to be won by me at this point. Probably my opponents will make it that I won't win all, but I think 3 are very much possible. Potentially 4, potentially even 5. So I take that. With the economic progress coming, I hopefully will get enough out of that, or have enough resources to do some stuff plus finish the Empire State Building. I upgrade my last lab to get more science and culture production going. I develop the tanks, go actually for 3 upgrades, spend all of my 3 free military actions, get out of corruption like this, and make it that if, and I was mainly looking at AaronGreen, if he is potentially vulnerable, or if he plays it greedily, I can declare a hybrid war, play the patriotism, have 2 military actions left over, which is just enough to go for Rifleman and shock groups tactic. Of course I would have some uprising issues then, but there are 2 copies of professional sports still left in the deck, and maybe that could at least end up being a possibility for me. I really thought about if somehow it is possible to set myself up for a war with taking the revolutionary idea and going for Rifleman Air Forces, but the thing is I'm just missing 1 tiny bit of science. Wait. I guess I need the revolutionary idea to be able to go for that, but that would mean missing out on the wonder, and without the revolutionary idea I'm missing 1 bit of science, and the hybrid war without the professional sports would just be very bad. I thought maybe I should just go for as much culture production as possible, score nicely, hopefully score some nice impacts and get a big Empire State Building. And so I wasn't willing to not take the Empire State Building in order to take the revolutionary idea to maybe make it possible to go for a war with Air Forces and Riflemen, but against AaronGreen that's not possible anyway because of the military actions. So against him I would need to develop the Riflemen and build some more units already this turn. And Saru has this tactic, has all of those resources, the military theory, so I just felt like going all in on wars is not the right choice. It could have been the right choice if I would have gone for the Manhattan Project earlier on, then it might be a different story now. But with how I now committed first to those computers, I think now I have to try to win it maybe, or and maybe at least finish second. I was a bit worried about that red cross that Saru can go for, but maybe come back peacefully. But I at least wanted to leave the option on the table with going for the hybrid war, and I might need a bit of strength anyway soon, and building up some strength and being the strongest could help me for the Empire State Building, so I thought hopefully those resources that I invest here are not in vain. I take the urban growth because I will have a lot of resources with the economic progress, but with me maybe trying to overtake AaronGreen in culture production ideally, also not only for the impact of culture, but also for the Empire State Building, it would be nice. I might need every bit of resource that I can get. I have the architecture, maybe I will be able to build a lot of movies, maybe I will be able to go for the democracy on top, and maybe that will be enough to overtake AaronGreen in culture production. But there was an issue, and that is that I'm of course not guaranteed to get the movies at the next turn. I thought it's likely that one copy of movie will be available for me, because Saru likely will go for the Red Cross. He has enough actions left over to go for movies, but there is a lot of other stuff that he might want to do. On the other hand, the multimedias are discarded. If he doesn't take a copy of movie, he maybe ends up without any way of producing more culture production. Maybe that's fine, he can just go for more technologies with Einstein and Nobel Prizes, but I thought maybe there's a chance he would take the movies, and then maybe there's a chance that AaronGreen could take the second copy of movies. And out of the sudden, I am the one without any way of getting more culture production apart from getting maybe an H3 government form and building a fourth computer. I thought on one hand my civil actions are extremely tight, and I really would like to increase my population here, but I really was worried about both of the movies being denied and me not having any way to invest more into culture, which is why at the end I took the multimedia here to have a backup plan. But maybe I need that many civil actions to do all of the stuff that I want to do, that I can't allow myself to spend a civil action here to have a backup plan. But I could also be completely screwed if I don't have that backup plan, so it was a bit of an annoying decision. Of course, I could also say I take the multimedia and increase my population, but I thought those 4 resources for one civil action I might really need to take here. So yeah, generally I was a bit worried. My opponents are running away with the culture, but I still can maybe build a lot of stuff and have the potential to score nicely in the impacts, but for that I would now need some good impacts. I was really worried and excited for my draw, and I was not too happy about the draw. Only another war, which now I'm not really prepared for, and yeah, I can't see an impact at the next turn, and that could really be a problem here. Saru offers the international tourism to AaronGreen, another thing that I really didn't like to see. Saru will, as you can see, finish the Red Cross, so AaronGreen will immediately get 4 culture production at his turn, Saru gets 3 culture production at his turn. So both of my opponents will sadly score now quite a bunch of additional culture, but not only that, it also makes it harder for me to compete for the impact of culture and for the culture for the Empire State Building. So here the international tourism could potentially end up being very influential, so I was really unhappy to see this pact between my 2 opponents. Saru finishes the Red Cross. It's interested to see if maybe the movies are taken away. Now with me having a backup plan, of course my opponents maybe have a little bit less of an incentive to deny the movies. And as we can see, Saru isn't taking the movies, instead just builds some military and maybe just makes sure that he's the strongest, prepared for strength events, and maybe just wants to be as safe as possible, because with getting that Red Cross, I do think things are looking quite strong for him. AaronGreen uses the frugality, takes the democracy, goes up to 20 culture production now, partly because of the international tourism, takes the Hollywood and ends his turn, so he can now build 2 more operas, not more, movies will be gone, multimedias are gone, so just 4 operas and the Hollywood, or maybe also only 3, but with the economic progress I basically know that he can go for 4 operas in the Hollywood, and that's not very impressive, but still a 24 culture Hollywood, which is perfectly fine, and he gets a lot of culture production. So when we take a look at the overview after his turn, I'm quite a bit behind in culture. The Empire State Building could end up, but might not end up being bigger than the Hollywood. And I at the moment don't have an impact in hand. And at my turn, I again had to make a choice. And that choice was basically, do I want to cede the historic territory here just for some culture? Or do I go for a hybrid war against AaronGreen, which could really cause some issues for him? As you can see, he has the revolutionary idea, but he can only go for one technology, he can only go for professional sports, or he can only go for rockets. He can't go for rockets and rifleman. He can't go for professional sports and rifleman, so he is very limited in that regard. And I could go for hybrid war, which would not be as big, but it would distract him from just building 2 operas and investing into the Hollywood. His cultural production might end up being less big. His Hollywood might end up being less big. He might need to destroy a bunch of stuff, hurting his impacts. So I could really hit him here. But going for the hybrid war also means that probably my chances for first place are very slim, because I don't get a lot of culture for myself. It is mainly about hurting AaronGreen. And I think if I go for this hybrid war, I don't have any chance for first place. You might of course argue that my chances for first place are quite slim anyway. And maybe let's see the cards revealed. You will see, sadly, then my choice for the politics phase, but I think the cards might also be important, because you can see the fast food chains is already in the row. So Saru will also be able to get the fast food chains. He has 2 engineering geniuses in hand when we take a look at his turn, so it's just, he will take it. So there's no chance that I can deny it, and even that wouldn't be a real possibility, because I need a lot of actions to build all of this stuff up to make the Empire State Building big. And at the end, I just thought my chances to finish before Saru are extremely slim anyway. I still checked if I maybe have the possibility to win the impact of culture despite the international tourism. I can go for movies this turn. The economic progress will be revealed, hopefully. There's a chance that it isn't revealed in time, which could be annoying, and which is also a downside of going for this war. And I came to the conclusion that sadly I won't be able to overtake AaronGreen very likely, if he can just peacefully build 2 operas next turn. And then, if I would have gotten 14 culture out of the impact of culture, plus 14 against Saru, plus 7 against AaronGreen, maybe I would have been brave enough to not go for the war and still play for first place, because maybe I still have a chance, but likely it's my second to last turn. And yeah, I just felt I need to disrupt AaronGreen here, because also catching up to him peacefully with potentially an impact in there, very likely that even benefits him, and not having knowledge about any further impact, it could just... I just didn't really see how I finished before Saru, and I was fearing that I will finish behind AaronGreen, and with this war, the disruption, and potentially making his Hollywood less big, I thought maybe I will disrupt AaronGreen enough to at least secure myself the second place. With going for the hybrid war, my actions are basically fixed. I developed the Rifleman, I play the Patriotism, I build a Rifleman, reveal the shock troops, and I go for 2 upgrades to professional sports. The second upgrade is mandatory, but I just think it's the best thing to do, getting 3 additional strength here for the war. And yeah, it's not the biggest war, but AaronGreen has some really big issues now. If I would have increased my population already the turn before, and if I would have not taken multimedia, I could take the movies here, but now it's not that important, and taking the movies here would potentially even accelerate or make it more likely that the next turn is my last turn, which I thought is maybe likely anyway, but Saru might take the fast food chains, and then maybe doesn't take a lot of cards, and AaronGreen might need to spend some actions to defend here, and then he maybe also can't easily take a lot of cards. And I thought maybe there's a chance that the age will continue, and maybe with that it turned actually out to be quite nice that I have taken the multimedia here. At least I score Nobel Prize. One big downside is that I don't draw any cards, so I again won't get an impact. If the age ends, I can't cede anything. I could maybe go for the armed intervention, hoping that it goes through, but I was generally not feeling too great about my position here. Saru doesn't see it. Another downside is that with me not being able to see it, it's actually quite likely that I sadly won't see my economic progress that I've seeded earlier on. Saru goes for the fast food chains, takes the satellites, uses his engineering genius too, and then increases his population, builds a cavalryman, gets a bit stronger. Maybe that makes the difference for him between being able to get to defend against an aggression or not, and also he gets out of corruption, but he takes only 2 cards from the row, meaning AaronGreen also has to take 2 if he wants to end a game. Maybe he doesn't even want to end the game if he feels safe after this war. Maybe he rather, again, wants to make sure that he can make the Hollywood as big as possible. He seeds. There's no economic progress revealed, and instead an event that I was extremely happy to see. It's the politics of strength, and I do think 5 additional draws could potentially be extremely valuable for me here. There are some very strong impacts, and AaronGreen won't get any draws, which is maybe not the most important, but could also hurt him. So I was very excited to see what 5 cards I have drawn of this impact. And I was not too happy. The 2 tactics I don't really need. A second war I don't need. The 2 impacts might be playable, but they aren't really strong. So sadly, not something like impact of science, potentially impact of strength, which I could play around. Impact of architecture, industry. I mean, I need maybe some specific impacts and a bit of impact luck. And at least I have some seedable ones, but it was not the thing that I hoped for when I saw the politics of strength revealed. Impact of competition is actually also quite strong for me. AaronGreen destroys some stuff. 2 farms, 1 lab, so at least he hurts his impacts here. Develops the rockets, builds 1, builds 2, doesn't build more. Instead builds an additional opera for more culture production, reveals the positional army tactics, so he's at 36 strength. I only steal 7 culture, basically like an armed intervention, but I disrupted him. But what also happens is that he doesn't end the age, so he maybe wants to make his Hollywood bigger. Maybe he feels safe enough, he can build 2 more rockets. He can't really get another yellow card with the Harvard College, but yeah, he can threaten a reasonable amount of strength. And I know that the economic progress is coming, so he can potentially go even for more rockets. So I have now wars in hand. I considered if it is a possibility, if I can go for the military theory, maybe just build 2 tanks, a professional sports, and just go for another war. Also, I was thinking about a war against Saru, when I can maybe go for air forces, but Saru can go for air forces himself, military theory, satellites, just not possible for me to go for a second war. With that, maybe AaronGreen is right in prolonging the game, even though I of course have the big production. So I was also hoping that maybe the game being prolonged by 1 more turn could maybe open up some new doors for me. So now it is my turn. I can't go for a war. And maybe I make a mistake here by seeding, because I actually decided to seed the historic territory into the deck, thinking that likely it won't be revealed. It might just give me 2 culture. And I mean, I have some defense cards in hand, maybe I can even potentially win it. But I thought it might just not be revealed. But now that the game was prolonged, I was thinking maybe there's a small possibility that I could overtake Saru. And because of that, I was afraid of seeding the impact of variety in, which Saru will be able to make quite big if he goes for satellites military theory. But my impact of variety, if I go for multimedia, or maybe air forces, if I try to build more strength, is also just fine. Maybe I lose some points to Saru, but I have the chance to gain some points against AaronGreen, and I think I should have seeded the impact of variety. I think Saru will get a wonder, AaronGreen will get a wonder, but Saru will get Nobel Prizes. I mean, he doesn't have as much culture production, but generally he will end up having a lot better impacts. I mean, there is the impact of culture coming, so because of that, I thought maybe there's a possibility that with the impact of culture, I have a chance to overtake him. But no, I at the end decided to push the historic territory. First of all, I will steal some culture from AaronGreen, so he is a bit closer to me now. I see the historic territory, which is probably a mistake. The economic progress is revealed, so I gain 11 additional resources. My opponents, of course, also gain some additional resources. I needed to take a look at my blue token situation before I seeded, because I have actually just enough to get everything out of the economic progress. I had only 3 blue tokens, but of course first there's corruption, and I had some blue tokens lying around here, so I could spend some, and then I gained some again, and with that I can actually I can get a full value out of the economic progress. This turn, my first idea was actually to go for democracy, build a first lab, and then maybe take military theory and revolutionary idea, allowing me to go for military theory and multimedia at the next turn, and then being able to build a bunch of multimedias. But then I realized something, that I have actually an option to go for an additional multimedia, which gives me maybe a small hope, I guess not really a hope, but a small hope that I can overtake AaronGreen in culture production for the Empire State Building. But if the impact of culture timing is right, maybe even for the impact of culture, AaronGreen, if he just builds an opera, I could overtake him, if I remembered correctly. But if he just builds one religion in addition, then I can't overtake him, and it's just so likely that he will do it. So it's only a small hope, but maybe I have to hope towards something here, or hope for something here, and so and generally it of course just produces me more culture. I still have the chance to draw one impact, and one impact could be the impact of architecture, one impact that could be very strong for me if I now build 3 multimedias at the next turn, and so I thought having the possibility to do this should be the best for me. I go for the democracy, I build a 4th lab, increase my population to only have 2 corruption, I take the engineering and the urban growth, and the engineering allows me, together with the urban growth, to build 3 multimedias at the next turn and finish the Empire State Building. However, and I can build 3 multimedias and an additional HA farm or an additional religion, so I think actually it's the case that if AaronGreen builds 1 opera and 1 religion, I can still overtake him. So I had some small hopes, but sadly AaronGreen can easily build even more religions, so he probably will just do it. But if I can't overtake him in culture, I can still build 3 multimedias at the next turn and an additional farm, and the additional farm will make it that I, at least for the moment, would have the most food production, so score 8 additional points for the Empire State Building. And so I thought that could be a strong last turn. But if I indeed want to go for 3 multimedias in a farm, I might end up having to delete a unit, which could be a bit problematic potentially. But nonetheless, I have enough science to go for a Nobel Prize with developing those 2 techs. I don't need a revolutionary idea. Doesn't give me as much for potential impact of progress as the military theory, but only 2 less. Of course, I also don't get a boost to impact of government and potentially helpful impact of strength, and potentially also defend against an aggression if I delete the unit, but I just can go for an additional multimedia, and I have the small hope that AaronGreen maybe doesn't go for as much culture, and that I can win the culture for the Empire State Building and the impact of culture if the timing is right. I draw some cards, and this time I actually do get some very strong impacts, especially against AaronGreen, which is great, but I was a bit unhappy that I haven't drawn them earlier, because now I will have only 1 politics phase left. Impact of technology will end up being very strong against AaronGreen. The impact of competition is at this point very strong against AaronGreen, who has only 2 rockets. And the impact of industry might not even be that big, because I will probably have to delete some iron mines at my turn. But yeah, I was a bit unhappy that I didn't have at least one of those impacts available early on. But I mean, I still needed some specific impacts, and it's not a guarantee to get those, but at least with the politics of strength, I was hoping to maybe get one of those good impacts for me. At least I have one now. The impact of tech will be quite big for me, so that I thought with that I could still catch up to AaronGreen. Saru goes for the military theory, the satellites, builds an organized religion for some additional culture production and to fix his happy phases. Spends units of swordsman to build a unit of cannon, which sadly makes him the strongest, which sadly makes it, if I delete a unit at my next turn, I am a bit in danger of an aggression. He develops another technology, a 3rd one actually, but he still has enough science left to go for another Nobel Prize at the next turn, so he scores 9 culture this turn with Einstein, 6 at the next turn, gets Nobel Prizes going almost every turn, and with that just scores a lot of culture. AaronGreen builds an opera, and now I was of course interested to see how many religions will he build. If he doesn't build another one, I could have a chance of winning the culture for the Empire State Building, but yeah, he does of course build another religion, and I kind of expected it, but of course I still had some small hopes that maybe for some reason, because of an impact or whatever, he would do something different. He will develop the tanks already, it takes the fundamentalism. So culture-wise, after his turn, I'm still quite a bit behind. We all will get a wonder. I will get now a very strong impact in there, but sadly the impact of culture will be won by AaronGreen, so I was a bit worried about this whole situation. I see the impact of technology, that's just the best thing to do for me. I thought that I kinda have to go for those 3 multimedias plus the farm play, despite this meaning that I have to disband a unit. And despite that meaning that I'm actually vulnerable to an aggression, I thought I might just need to take the risk. I thought about a different play where I win the strength and the food for the Empire State Building, but the thing is I would need to destroy too much. I need to destroy 2 mines and then another thing, so either one of those buildings, which is extremely costly. A farm I can't destroy because I need it for the Empire State Building, and I also can't destroy my last oil mine because then I would lose the resource production for the Empire State Building, and with that it just wasn't a possibility to play around the strength, so I thought that I will go for just the 3 multimedias plus farm play now, which sadly would leave me in danger of getting hit by an aggression. However, the last event that is revealed actually changes stuff here a little bit, because I do gain a bit of additional food here, meaning I can get 1 more population out, meaning I can disband 1 thing less. And with that, I actually came to the conclusion that now it is better to fight for the strength and get an additional category for the Empire State Building. So I developed the engineering, the multimedia, score a Nobel Prize, built an additional farm to have the most food production, increase my population, build a tank, destroy a mine, build a tank, destroy a mine, build a warrior, meaning that I have just enough strength to get the 8 additional points for the Empire State Building, meaning now I can finish the Empire State Building for 32 points, and afterwards I can disband the warrior again and build in the multimedia for at least some additional culture production, and then I end my turn. I could have built 2 multimedias more for 6 additional culture production, but getting the additional stage here gave me 8 additional cultures, that's already more, and in addition to that, I am not vulnerable to an aggression, and I'm a lot better prepared for a potential impact of strength, which could maybe be an impact that I might be hoping towards. Maybe Saru could have seeded it, it could give me some points against AaronGreen. And so I think that is the better play now. I was now with building even more tanks, even more a bit unhappy that I don't have the time to see this impact of competition in, because that gives me at this point I think also something like plus 16 against AaronGreen, but I don't have the time to seed it into the deck sadly. Saru seeds, there is the impact of culture, it didn't turn out well for me. Without the international tourism, I would have been, I guess now not, but I then could have gone for those 2 additional multimedias, and I could have scored a culture for the Empire State Building, and I would have won the impact of culture. So the international tourism sadly being quite influential here, not only score my opponents more points, but it also swings the impact of culture and potentially the Empire State Building. Even though, of course, if I would have gone for the culture, I wouldn't have won the strength, so I wouldn't have won an additional category, but I just could have scored more culture reduction while winning an additional category and getting more points for the for the impact of culture. So this international tourism, also with that many wonders on both sides, sadly, is quite influential here. Saru upgrades some cannons to rockets, builds a religion, upgrades that religion to organized religion, giving me some small hope. Maybe he could have seen an impact of architecture, and then he finishes the fast food chains for 24 points, scoring another Nobel Prize with Einstein. AaronGreen sadly has an event to push. There's the impact of progress revealed, which was seeded by Saru, and which at least gives me plus 4 points against AaronGreen, but I might need to hope for better impacts here. I mean, I have a bit of a lead even now before AaronGreen, but AaronGreen will get some insanely big culture reduction, plus the Hollywood, which is quite a lot. Builds an additional farm, maybe as an impact preparation, helps him for harmony, helps him for balance, helps him for an impact of agriculture. And then before the final impacts, as you can see, it's quite close between Saru and AaronGreen, and I'm quite a bit behind. The impact of technology, however, will mean that I can catch up quite a bit to AaronGreen, and if maybe the other impacts, maybe the ones by AaronGreen are somewhat neutral, and the sadly only 1 impact by Saru is a very good one for me, I could have still chances, but now a lot has to go right. I basically need maybe the luck that AaronGreen has seeded one of my very good impacts. Actually, one thing that I forgot to note, the impact of technology is actually beneficial for me also against Saru, which is surprising because he did so much with Einstein, but he developed also a bunch of H2 technologies, and so I actually gained 4 more points out of this impact than Saru. So let's see what the final impacts will be. The first one is the impact of technology. Saru gets plus 24, AaronGreen gets plus 12, and I get plus 28, so out of the sudden I'm only 14 points behind him. Then there's the impact of population. That is not that great because I lose 4 points to AaronGreen. We have the impact of wonders. It was a very wonder heavy game. Each player at least built 4 wonders, interestingly. And with that, it's neutral between me and AaronGreen. And now I would need 1 impact that catches me up 18 points, or 19 if I want to overtake AaronGreen. The impact of strength allows me to catch up some points to AaronGreen, so that I'm 11 points behind him, but sadly it is not enough, meaning I lose the game, AaronGreen manages to keep his second place, and Saru is able to win the game, and with that win a title of the Transcontinental Ladder for the first time since quite a long time. He has collected 2 titles, I don't know exactly when, but I think it was maybe even before my time in the Transcontinental Ladder. And so congratulations to him. I think he played a very interesting game, especially the early game with Hammurabi, Theocracy, doing a revolution into Theocracy, going for the Forbidden City, setting up the Kremlin. And I think had a very interesting game, and it worked out for him. So it's always at least nice if someone wins with doing some interesting decisions and maybe having an interesting play style. AaronGreen, I thought, had a potentially vulnerable position going into H3, but I mean, he managed to just generate a culture lead, was a bit safer with Gandhi. Maybe I could have gone more heavily into military, but at the point when the Manhattan Project was there, I didn't have a war. Maybe it still would have been generally a good play, and I could have still pivoted into a peaceful play, but Computers plus Admire just seemed to be very strong, and I didn't know if I might get this combination later on. And then at the end I'm sadly missing some points. I think there was still the possibility to make a peaceful comeback if maybe I could have seeded this impact of competition instead of the impact of culture or the historic territory. I think that already would be enough now. Of course, things might have gone differently, but that already would be enough to overtake AaronGreen. And of course, if this International Tourism Pact wouldn't be there, and also the military alliance. I mean, I had the International Trade Agreement, so I had also a pact ongoing. Shouldn't complain too much, but this international tourism was just extremely influential in this game. And so sadly I lose this game, which I'm of course not happy about, especially because when going into H3 and especially after seeing that early oil, I thought things are looking good for me, but Saru had soon 10 actions, could accelerate the game very much. Then the game got actually prolonged, but I couldn't really plan towards that prolonging of the game, so I needed to play a turn where I have to expect that the age will just end, and which maybe limited the amount of things that I could get out of this additional turn. And so at the end I sadly wasn't able to catch up to my opponents, but I think it was quite an interesting game, so I think a good vote by my Patreon supporters. And I hope it was interesting for you to watch. The next games that I plan on covering are the ones from the Intermezzo Championship. And so I say thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.